Welcome to the 301 Podcast, the interview podcast for the hottest up-and-coming entrepreneurs, artists, and creators. Real, authentic, and inspiring. And here is your host, Marcus Engel. Let's get it started in 301.
Welcome back to the 301 Podcast, and today we have Rachel Ecclestone in the podcast. She is a creative videographer and photographer, and she has worked with the biggest brands, stars, and festivals in the world. Rachel, welcome to the 301 Podcast.
Thank you kindly for having me.
It's really funny because when I start to work together with podcast guests and when I search for podcast guests, I always find people like on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And then I make a screenshot and just kind of follow them around, like shadow them, like being the super creep that I am.
Love that.
And when I first found your profile, that was somewhere, I think I checked the screenshot yesterday, which was like maybe November 2023, December 2023.
Yeah.
And I think you had like 3,500 followers on Instagram. You were not super open of sharing, but I think you already had like quite really cool like pictures and images and videos on your account. And I thought like, she has an interesting eye. I think she would be like a really cool guest for the 301 Podcast. Now it's 1.5 years later. Not only time passed, but also like your amount of followers quadrupled. Like I think you have more than 10,000 followers now. What happened in the past 1.5 years?
Well, first of all, I moved to Sony now. I think I became very open with sharing my process. Obviously, we had a huge break in photography and event work during COVID. And after that, there was just an enormous boom in talent, in saturation in the market. And I think I decided to turn myself into a brand. I thought, okay, the only way that I'm going to succeed and continue as a photographer is by really making myself a legend in this scene. And I've been a photographer for quite a long time. I suppose in this young scene, a lot of young photographers are popping up with 2 or 3 years of experience who are fantastic. But I've been doing this for about 9 years now, which makes me a bit of an old head. I still did photography with an old DSLR, no mirrorless, which means we had to memorize everything. And I think I'm quite old school in that respect. I still like to work fully manual. I love to learn new techniques, and I do like to keep up with modern technology. But I really find it important to know the basics. And that's what I'm trying to teach everybody online, is to know your basics, that it's not very difficult, and to really get to know your gear. So I think that's what's changed. I've started sharing more, and it's been amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
What do you think the role is of kind of like this personal brand nowadays? Like, of course, everyone is talking about like, you need this personal brand, you need this personal brand. I mean, interesting from you to hear from you. Do you think that everyone needs a personal brand?
1000%. It's very funny. I had a client last week. They had a golf event, and the CEO of the golf event was there. And I showed him my Instagram profile, and he said, "Very good. You are a brand." And he showed me an article that he screenshotted from 2006 from The Telegraph. It was a British article where it was talking about people becoming brands in 2006. And I just thought it was ingenious. I think this concept of becoming a brand has always existed. And I think we've kind of lost it in the mud. I think a lot of people used to become a brand and they didn't have social media to promote themselves, but everybody knew who they were in their communities. So I think it was easier to stand out, and now everyone's kind of copying each other. So it's more difficult to become a unique brand. And I think that's where people are now struggling, is that a lot of people are trying to become a brand, but they're following this map of someone else that they've seen online. And I think that's, if you want to become a brand, you really need to look at what you're doing, how are you unique, and what can you give to your local community. And you need to start thinking more locally and not globally.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they see, this account has, 200,000 followers, and then
let me do what they do.
Exactly, yeah. And I myself, when I started creating content also for myself, for my own channel, I really also struggled with this, So I was saying like 3 tips, how you do this, 5 things. And I was like, wow, that's so not like me. That's so not like how I would talk, how I would like also show myself online.
Yeah.
So I was struggling with that as well. And I think there's still so many people that don't even get into it because they think
Yeah.
the only way to get into it is like basically to tell that story, right?
Yeah, to copy others and not to tell their own story, or that they think there's a certain algorithm that works in a certain way, whereas really authentic content will always work the best.
Yeah.
Share a personal story, go on a long rant, talk about your goals, your dreams. And I think it's not as scary as people think it is. And it's also not cringe. Like I think the largest barrier for me was that I always wanted to share things, but I thought that I would be seen as a sellout, or people would judge me for the way that I talk or the way that I look. And nobody's perfect. We're all human. The Instagram filters are not real. Just show yourself in your dark moments, in your light moments, and people will love it. And I think you'll also find, you'll find your tribe, because there is someone for everybody online. And no matter who you are, the way that you want to show yourself, there's going to be people that align with that. So I think it's really important to show yourself online. And I also think there's a really important distinction between sharing yourself professionally online and sharing personal aspects. A lot of people think that they know who I am. A lot of people think that they know what my day-to-day looks like, but I actually share pretty much nothing private online. Everything I share is based on, of course, it's my personality, but I'm not sharing if I'm sick. I'm not sharing anything about my family. Happy Father's Day, by the way. Yesterday was Father's Day. I also don't share Father's Day pictures. I think those kinds of things, I think it's important to make a distinction between yourself as a brand and who you are in your personal life. And I think that's what makes it more sustainable for me as well.
What pushed you then over the edge for you to kind of like say like, okay, I am not gonna go into those like pre-made footsteps that is there, but I do my own thing?
I think it was just very natural, really. So I have this beautiful photography group with Flinta photographers. That's female people that are presenting as female. And I started this group about 5 years ago to kind of bring more female representation into the events community. And I was getting a lot of questions from those people in the group that I wanted to answer. I was getting a lot of questions on Instagram that I wanted to be able to answer. And I wanted to be able to answer them in an authentic way. So I think it was just a very organic transition from typing out paragraphs on Instagram to just thinking, okay, I can also just make a video and explain this and share it with everybody instead of kind of gatekeeping. And I was brought up in a very kind of free environment where I believe in information is wealth. And I think that everyone deserves that wealth of information. And I just don't believe in telling one person the information and not telling the other person. So I thought Instagram's the best way to just be non-biased, give everyone everything, and not make any personal decisions who doesn't deserve information.
Yeah. You also had quite a interesting upbringing as well. You like grew up in Oman. You lived in Syria. You lived in Norway, and since 8-9 years in Amsterdam. Like, how has this kind of like growing up shaped you as a person?
I think it's made me very tolerant of people's cultures and their ways of living, which is a gift. I'm very grateful for that. I think it's made me non-biased, and it makes me want to communicate with people in a very unbiased way. And I think it's also made me very forward. So I also studied international politics and law at university. And when I was studying those things and when I was having debates with certain people, I found it incredibly interesting how people's backgrounds shapes their current arguments and how they view the world. And I think that's something that has made me extremely interested in photography and videography, and has allowed me to capture different types of perceptions and also to see different creators as artists. And I really want every artist to be able to perform in a way that's authentic to themselves. And I think it's it's just beautiful to be able to connect with people on so many different levels. Not sure exactly where that question was going, but yeah.
I love it. What I find interesting is like two things, and we have to talk about both of it. But first, I want to maybe go back a little bit, like when photography like kind of like started for you as well. Was it a typical journey of getting a DSLR with 14 and then like getting into it, or how did your photography journey start?
Good question. I think it started from being a very lonely child. With the background that I have, one of the consequences was that we did move around a lot, which meant I was alone a lot of the time. My parents are very hardworking people, and I have a brother, and my brother is quite introverted, and I can be quite extroverted. So my photography journey actually started when I was living in Norway, and I would go on these long hikes, Saturdays, Sundays, and I would just think, what a beautiful place this is. But I was also interested in fashion. So I started taking a tripod, putting it on my back, carrying a backpack with a small camera. It was my dad's old camera that he didn't use anymore. And I started taking photographs of myself. After a 2-hour hike, I would bring outfits in my backpack with a trigger, and I would take photographs of myself, and I posted these on a platform called Lookbook. It was like a fashion platform that used to be, I swear, like as big as MySpace. And I became one of the top 2-3 like influencers on that platform for the country that I was in, so Norway. And that platform started sharing me on Instagram, and I thought, oh, Instagram's a fun. I was there at the conception of Instagram.
That's crazy.
Which is like unreal to think that Instagram is so young. So I started posting on Instagram, and Lookbook account started sharing more of my images, and I thought, oh, this is pretty fun. And then it just kind of died down. I went to university, did some other things, and after university, I thought, you know what? I love what I do. I love politics. I love debating. I love connecting with people. But do I really want to work in Geneva, wearing a suit every day, having my hair up? And I thought, I'm just going to give it a try. I'm going to give myself 2 years to become a photographer. I was doing all the photography at my university parties. I was doing graduation photos for people, all unpaid. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to move to Amsterdam. It has a ton of creative agencies, ton of festivals, a ton of clubs. If I can't make it in 2 years, I'll go back.
Yeah.
I'll go back to going into politics. I'll go back into politics and I'll wear my suit and I will assume my defeat. But it worked out. So.
But do you remember like the first picture that you took that you were really proud?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think I was working at Club Nix, which was a place that I hold very dear to my heart. It was one of the clubs that there's actually someone called Junior, who's the club manager. And after about a year of doing photography, he brought me into Club Nix and said, I love what you do. At that point, I was drawing on photos. I was using confetti. I was doing all these, like creating these weird vignettes to make it look like wet plate photography, this analog photography. I was doing that with club photos. So people were like, what is this girl doing? She's crazy. But Junior called me in and he said, I love what you're doing. I want to see you grow and you can do whatever you want here at Club Nix. And it's a beautiful, queer, like 3-story club with just the most magical, wonderful, kind people, but also people who dress up, drag, makeup, hair, and they love the camera. So I started doing photography there, and I wanted to step away from flash photography, which wasn't very common yet in club days. So I bought a nan light, very large nan light, and I started carrying around this massive nan light in the club, and also combined with this kaleidoscope. And some of those pictures, I've done expositions with those pictures. Like these are club images, but it looks like they could come from a catalog. So to have been able to have gotten the freedom at Club Nix to really express myself and grow as a photographer and be trusted to do something that wasn't the norm. Those were images that I hold very dear to my heart and still have some of the best reception. If I would repost them or reshare them, everyone's like, what did you do here? And this was with a Canon Mark IV in 2018, So those are images that I'm proud of.
That's crazy. I think that's so cool. Do you know where your like where that kind of creativity comes from? Because like I really find this like this is not just saying like, oh, I took like a creative angle, or
Right.
I know my settings on the camera, or
Sure.
because I think that's like really kind of like the extra layer of why your pictures are so special or your videos are so special today. So I think a lot of that extraordinary creativity that you can bring to the set. Do you know where that kind of comes from? Or
I think I had a really good education. I do have to say, I think I did a type of schooling called International Baccalaureate, IB, which is, it pushes you extremely hard, but it also focuses on problem solving. And I think that type of schooling from a young age forces you to think differently. It also encourages students to spend at least 6 or 7 hours on creativity outside of school, and you have to log these hours. So I think also it's something that can inherently be inside you. I think it's hard to teach. I do think it has to be a perfect combination of having the right knowledge, knowing how to implement it, because I do think a lot of what we do is also business. I do think despite being an amazing creative, if you don't have some kind of business savvy, you're not going to know how to implement your ideas or how to communicate your ideas. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I've definitely had a couple years where I was just doing whatever. But the older I get, the more I try and think about problem solving for a client and moving the scene forward. So what can I do that is going to encourage the scene to do something else? How can I inspire people around me to do better, or to deliver better, or to create more of an experience for a client? And I think that's probably like what you have too. It's part marketing, part knowing that you have to be a brand, part knowing that you have to harness your creativity in a certain way for it to be seen and to make it profitable. In the end, you also want to earn money.
Is this something that can be taught, or is this also like then just like pure talent from your side?
I think it can be taught to a certain extent. I think if you have to want it, like with anything, like with it's a tough job. It's long hours. You need to be obsessed to a certain level. You need to want to go through a lot of negative feedback to get better. So I think you can get there without maybe being inherently talented. I mean, no one is born and knows how to use a camera. You don't see a 3-year-old knowing how to use a camera. But I have seen videos on Instagram of a 3-year-old picking up a Polaroid and instructing their parent, hey, mom, sit down there, sit down there. And I think that's inherent talent. I think someone like that will likely succeed. But if you don't, if you have no passion for it, it's not gonna happen, I don't think.
Is it difficult for you to handle negative feedback on your work?
I think it depends on who's giving me the feedback. If it's someone that I don't respect, I don't care. But if it's someone that I do hold in high regard, then I would find it difficult. But it's been a while since I've received negative feedback. I have received feedback once in the past year from someone who I was working on a team with that found that I delivered too many images and wanted me to reduce my images, which I just felt was a creative difference. I have a certain eye, and I have clients, all of my clients really enjoy that style of work. And if a fellow photographer feels like I need to reduce the amount of images, I think you're jealous. I kind of think like, it's because you're feeling intimidated that I'm delivering 400 images and you've got 100. So I think it depends on who's giving the feedback and why.
And when you like go on set and you like on a typical day, like how much of your work is like improvised versus like pre-planned?
It really depends on the job. And I think that's what's so interesting and fun about this work. Every day is different. So on Thursday, this Thursday, I'm doing a shoot for Bud, the beer. And we have about 3 or 4 calls. We have a shot list. I know exactly what I'm shooting, when I'm shooting it. I only have about 10 minutes per shot and 5 minutes between shots to get what I need. And we're doing photography in the morning and video in the afternoon. So you need to be on schedule. So things like that take quite a lot of planning. I have a whole list, things that I need to put in the car. I'll definitely run through that list 3 times because when I started out, I would forget a battery or, just silly things. And that just can't happen. At this level, that just can't happen. So a shoot like that takes, I would say, 5 or 6 hours of preparation. If you're working for a bigger client, maybe more. Then again, you can also get a call. I got a call from Maybelline. I did a campaign with Maybelline and I had 3 days to prepare. But the briefing was quite simple. It was a beauty briefing. And then, beauty is pretty much always the same. So something like that, you just inherently know, okay, beauty takes me 15 minutes to prepare. Festival, 0 minutes to prepare. I just have to drive there and make sure that I'm well rested.
Yeah.
So, everything's different.
And what's your favorite type of kind of, like, do you have like, I mean, it's probably difficult, but like, is it then like, if a festival, does it have your heart or?
I have to say, the older I get, the less I'm loving festivals. There's a lot of saturation in the market and the budgets are decreasing. So the budgets have stayed about the same for the last 3 years. And this is the first year I've noticed the budget's decreasing for photographers. So I think it's for someone who wants to progress in their career. At some point, it just doesn't add up. You're doing a 14-hour day. If you work out the hours, you're actually earning less than minimum wage, which is... when you hit 30, you think, yeah, that was fun. And some festivals I still do. I'm going to be at Awakenings this year. Should be fun. And you do that for the love of the music. But my heart, I love beauty. Beauty's really fun. They take care of you. Everybody looks amazing. And I really like making people feel gorgeous. And I like working with, of course, high-end luxury clients. They are relaxed, they pay on time, they feed me. Yeah. So it's, it's changed. It changes every year.
Yeah. And how do you kind of like, because what I think, how it feels sometimes when I look at your videos or also like pictures is like that the people in front of the lens kind of like have a really like high trust feeling towards you.
Sure.
Like, is that something that, again, like, is that something you are like kind of just gifted with, or is there anything special that you make people feel a certain way? Or
that's very kind of you. That's a really beautiful observation that I didn't realize. I think my background has helped with that. I think when you move a lot as a child, you are a chameleon. And you're able to create this energy where you're somewhere new and you immediately feel comfortable. I think it starts with, I always feel comfortable somewhere. I know that I belong somewhere. And I always make eye contact. I always dance along. I will always give positive affirmations. If someone's looking my way or dancing my way, I'll always smile or... and you don't want to overdo it. I think the moment you overdo it, which I see some people do, like they'll go up to someone and be like, oh my God, you're amazing, blah, blah, blah. Then you've kind of broken this barrier, this beautiful theatrical wall that you, I think, need to maintain somewhat. And I think just don't linger. Like respect someone, respect their space, interact. And if the interaction is not natural, just leave. So I think it's just getting into a place where you're always comfortable, you belong, and giving that energy to someone else. Because I think energy is everything when you're at a festival. People are hyper aware of who's next to them, who's behind them, who's in front of them. And you can feel that in a crowd that's extremely hyped. They'll hype each other up. And if you're bringing a different energy, you're going to ruin the moment.
It's going to be difficult. You also are really advocating for females in the creative industry, which is
Sure.
really nice. You have this group which was called Flinta, right?
Flinta. Yeah.
How was that scene like in the beginning, and like kind of like how have you also maybe brought this industry forward?
So when I started, there were about 2 other female photographers that were active in our scene, Janneke Nooy and Kirsten van Santen. You also had these girls called the Fotomeisjes, but they disappeared quite quickly. And it was a real struggle to be taken seriously. For a long time, for about 2 or 3 years, I was the only girl in festival teams. And it's difficult. There were lewd comments made. There was a very macho attitude in these rooms. And a lot of these photographers would not give me, so in photography world, especially at a festival, the overview shots are considered like the money shots. So if you're the money photographer, if you're the best photographer, you're going to get the overview shot, or you're going to be giving the biggest stage with the biggest pyro. And when I started, no one took me seriously. I think it was a girl thing, because I heard this from my colleagues as well. Like, hey, why do they always put me on people? Like, oh, you're so relaxed with people. Like, you're so good with outfit photography. Yeah, but I can also do money shots. Like, what? And I think it took a long time before that changed. I think it was about 3 years ago that I started seeing a lot of female representation. And a lot of the men also had these groups. And I thought, you guys have a group and I don't get any of these tips or the help or the anything. So yeah. I decided to do that for the people around me. And Flinta is also people that are female presenting or non-binary. So I pretty much only give work to females or non-binary or trans people. And I've noticed a softening in the culture. I've noticed a lot more equality, and not to say that I've made a change, but yeah. I've definitely seen a movement towards positivity and also a lot more confidence. I think it's really important to support each other, and especially girls. Sometimes the stories that I hear in this group, we have this group chat where we discuss how certain clients react to us, or for instance, a client will not want to pay. And not all men, but always a man, will make some very strange comments. And I kind of think, would you make these same comments if it was a male photographer? So I think it's really important to keep pushing at that, to keep getting women into positions of power, into the creative field. I would love to see more female creative directors. I would love to see more DOPs or people leading these festival teams, because I've also not ever had a female lead a festival team yet. So for instance, DEF CON or these other large festivals, I mean, they're great. They are fantastic, but I would love to see a girl in that position. And I think we're going to get there soon. So. And
what do you think the industry like needs, or maybe also if like some creative teams are listening now, what can people also like on the client side do to kind of change this narrative?
I think just hire a girl. Like, I think a lot of people think that maybe girls are too soft or they're not able to control a team. But there are a lot of really good girls who just need to be able to give them that chance to show that they can step up and be professional. Because I think a lot of girls or women in teams, we kind of frolic about, where we laugh a lot, we try and be very relaxed, but that's also a product of wanting to be seen as non-competitive. We don't want to be seen as someone who is going to become emotional or who's going to kind of become a twig in this system that people have built. And I think the women will approach leadership slightly different, but we do have these shoes that we put on for certain roles. I think women are more adaptive in that, or can be more adaptive in that. And I've seen a lot of women step up when they've been given the chance and take on a completely different persona. So I think if you're considering someone, definitely give them the chance, see how they do.
What really stands out for me is that you said like, I don't want to gatekeep. And I think with everything you do, with like the community that you've built, with the videos that you share, like, why is it so important for you kind of like to educate and to kind of like be this open book? Because in the end, like if you, let's think about like a business person, there's one video that I watched this today, and you share like about how to batch edit 400 pictures on After Effects. And then I thought, hey, this is super nice. Also for me, like, oh, I have to try this out. But on the other hand, I was thinking like, if I would be the client and you would deliver 400 pictures, I would might think like, wow, she color graded 400 pictures, or like at least, kind of like, so there's those two sides that is like, what is like too much and what harms you also like your business.
I think that's a good question. I think my perspective is that nothing will harm my business. The more I share, the more we all win. I'm a vegan, so I don't eat animals, and I also am quite a socialistic person. I try to donate. I try to always help if someone asks me something. I think it's maybe something that's more intrinsically within me. Also, when I lead a team, if I'm very different as a photographer from someone else, I will not try and influence them whatsoever. I just really want people to win. And I really believe that if I win, if they win, we all win. And maybe it's a bad business move, but right now it's only helped me. And I think we already live in a world where so many people don't want to share. So be the person that does share, because the more that I share, hopefully the more people will want to share their process. And in that way, we're all learning.
Yeah.
There's also so much information online. I believe you can find whatever you want if you look for it.
Yeah.
So I might as well be the person to share it.
But I think a lot of times people also just waiting for someone to break it down, right? I
totally.
also recently had a client who said, like, it's so nice to like finally have some context, some human context to this podcast journey, and not always like just talk to ChatGPT which microphone to take or which like stuff to do.
Totally.
Speaking about starters, like to start with a podcast or start like also the maybe videography or photography journey, what would be your kind of advice for people that want to get started out in this industry? Like, what should they do first?
I think make a badass video on your iPhone. Honestly, the way things are going, you can be a videographer with an iPhone. If you enjoy it, you first need to find something that you enjoy. And you can start a podcast on your phone. You can start interviewing your family. You can photograph your dad's anniversary or your mom's anniversary or a local party. I think my advice would just be to start and to see if your obsession grows or it diminishes. Because without that drive, you're not going to get there. You also don't need the gear. You need ideas. And I think also that school doesn't necessarily need to get you there. I did not do photography or videography school. I learned everything from the school of YouTube, which I think is like a very valid place to learn. So do it in your free time. You can still have a full-time job. You can still be studying. Just watch a half an hour a day and really see if your obsession grows. And if it grows, DM a couple people. I honestly have to say, I get a lot of DMs of people saying, hey, can I come with you to an X festival or to this, or do you need an assistant? And it doesn't really work. If you DM us, we're probably not going to go for it because it's quite a lot of work for us to help someone else in their journey. But there are a lot of agencies. I think photo studios, if you volunteer or say, hey, I want to be an assistant at a photo studio, I think that's a great place to learn. At a podcast studio, sometimes they need interns. I think maybe more find a photography agency or a video agency and apply to one of those places is going to be a more solid bet.
Yes. You talked a little bit about gear, but how important is gear? Because I think you are really a big friend of iPhone photography, and
sure.
like you don't need like big cameras, and like you say, I have my 2 cameras. Like starting out, I think it's very tempting to go to Camera Nu or to other like shops and say like, oh nice, like the new camera from Sony and stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's like how important is gear also for your creativity?
I think don't fall into the trap of buying a medium camera. Like what I'm really seeing a lot of is like the G7X or the little X100V cameras with a fixed lens, and don't fall into the trap of buying a medium camera. I think those are pretty useless. I have the X100V myself. It's a fun holiday camera, but you cannot shoot a party with it. You can't shoot a festival with it. It's not possible. I think if you have an obsession and you can create something cool on a phone, then I would save up and buy something that's appropriate for your goals.
So
but
then,
also
then rather like investing like one time into something good and then
Yes.
kind of like be good further down the line,
yeah,
rather than spending whatever
definitely.
3.5K on a camera now and figuring out that 2 years in your journey you have to upgrade again for
For
like
sure.
6K camera or something.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about obsession the past couple of sentences,
Sure.
which I find a very interesting topic. Would you say you are obsessed with like camera work and like your work, like your work field?
Definitely. Yeah. I think if I could, I would work every single day, which I sometimes do. And I think that takes a certain level of crazy to do. And the only people I follow are content creators. The only people I follow are photographers, videographers. I definitely lie in bed awake thinking, how the hell did they make this photograph? How on earth did they do the color grading? I need to learn this. I need to improve. And I think never thinking that you're good enough is the only way that an artist lives, or that a photographer lives. Especially a self-taught photographer, you never think you're good enough. I'm nowhere near where I want to be. Nowhere near. And I think that's where the obsession comes in. It's just undeniable that I'm not good enough and I need to be better. And the only way to get there is just by doing it every single day, trying something new every single day. And I think that's just crazy. Like, I think I'm insane.
You're insane and you're laughing about it. So
Yeah,
it's
it's great.
Like
I love
enough.
it. I mean, it's a good thing to be insane about.
Yeah. And of course, like I think everyone is a little bit obsessed, needs also to be a little bit obsessed, because you need a crazy amount of discipline to go to the places where you are as well. Are you then ever satisfied with your work? Like, can you look at your work and be like, oh, I've done a good job? Or even when you deliver, you lie in bed and think like, oh, I could have maybe done it better.
I mean, how do you feel about that when you deliver something?
Mostly I think I could have done better, because there are so many things like in a creative journey creating something. There's also so many things that you, I don't know, have maybe messed up, or that is like kind of like just brushed over, which in a final result you will not see. And someone looking at an Instagram picture for 4 seconds, or someone looking at a podcast clip for 15 seconds will not realize that, I don't know, I had to cut out all my cuffs because my throat is hurting or something like this, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you see much more of the behind the scenes, which sometimes makes it, I think, more difficult to be proud of.
Yeah, I feel that. I think that rings so true. I think when you're working at this scale as well, and you're working at this speed, I feel like a robot sometimes. And sometimes all images look the same to me. I think I've taken this image 100 times. What's special about it? Why would a client want this? What makes this different from everything else that I've done? And of course, a lot of the images never get posted online, but you, as you said, as the creator, you think this is just shit. Everyone has seen this 100 times before, and it's because you've seen it 100 times before. And also, when you're working at this speed, I usually only get 20 seconds to edit each image, you know? I get 20 seconds per image, and I think, yeah, I still have 300 pictures to edit from this event, and I have 3 other events that I need to finish today. You know, you just robot your way through it, and sometimes a photo really hits with a certain audience, and you don't know which photo that's going to be. And then you think, I only spent 20 minutes taking that.
Yeah. And how do you still make sure that you keep on like being creative in that sense? Like how, like, because otherwise, yeah, you end up in a creator burnout in 2 years if you're never like satisfied and keep on going.
I think most photographers will hit a creative burnout at some point. I think it's inevitable. I think it's part of the learning process. I think it's part of especially if you don't have a business owner in your family. My family has no business owners. I was the first person who decided I'm going to freelance. So no one's there to hold you back. No one's there to say, hey, calm down, take it easy. So I think everybody will have a creative burnout in their life. And I've definitely been there. And I think the way that I got out of it was by learning something new. I think by learning how I use an FX6, so going more into videography or making these, like, for me, it feels like funny little reels in Instagram. It really felt like a creative outlet. It felt like something fresh, something new, something that I was doing for myself and not for a client. And I know a lot of different photographers have different methods of letting themselves out, but I think that obsession remains. It's just channeling it into a different form, into a form that's not for a client. So how can I find my passion again where I'm not getting paid for it? And that for me was making these videos. So really it came out of a dark place.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times it does, right? Because
Yeah.
like, I think, especially as a photographer, you are the person behind the lens, right? But your images and the content that you create make people go famous, become celebrities, make them a lot of money. And most of the time, like a photographer, I mean, is like somewhere credited like along the way.
Yeah. If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah. And like, what does it do to you? Like, how does it make you feel? And is that difficult for you to sometimes not get the credit? Because even though that, especially when you're like really creative, you think like, yeah, I did it. Like,
It's mine.
Yeah.
You know that meme where it's like someone standing in the corner of a party? It's like a black and white thing. They don't know that I did this.
They don't know I took the picture.
Yeah. I think I've taken that to heart. I think I've internalized that meme. And it used to bother me so much. But there's so much content in the world, and there are so many incredible photographers and videographers that you can't let it bother you. Like, it's awesome to be credited, and I really shout and praise every client that tags me correctly. Like, we love you. But if a client doesn't tag me, I'm not going to spend my energy on that.
Yeah.
You know, it's so much work, and I think it's quite off-putting for a client if the photographer starts kind of bugging you, like, hey, credit me, hey, like,
it feels petty a little bit.
It feels very petty. You could lose a client relationship. You could irritate your client, and it's often not the client. It's often an intern or a social media person, someone under them who's doing the social media. And really, is that one photo really going to change your life? Unless it's like Kid Cudi or Beyonce, it's like unlikely to really impact your career. So just keep creating. If someone tags you, thank them and share it. And I think the best you can do is just ask kindly when you deliver the photos. That's what I do. I say, hey, like, here's your gallery, blah, blah, blah. If you want to credit me, it would be amazing. Big love. And if they don't, whatever.
Is that then also a reason why, like, with those videos that you've done, and I mean, like, you've done a couple of videos, but now you have like collabs with like Samsung and all this kind of stuff, which I think are really, really cool videos.
Thanks.
That you created. Is that then also kind of like your way of saying, like, I also kind of, it's my own creation, and like, you know, I'm a little bit in the spotlight and I can do my own vision and my own content?
Yeah, I think that's a nice way to put it. I think it's also part of brand building. I realized that there's a lot of good photographers. I realized how easy it is to become a photographer. I think when I started photography, you had to kind of be a nerd. You had to be a geek. You had to want to learn the technicals. And I think most people can pick up a mirrorless camera, put it on like shutter priority, and get really amazing images without having to learn the technicals. I was at a festival recently, and there's a fantastic photographer, and I love their work. But they came up to me and they said, I don't actually know why I shouldn't do this. I'm not going to blast them, but I don't know why I shouldn't do this. Can you explain to me why I shouldn't do this? And this was something that I was taught from using a DSLR, why you should never do what this person was doing. It just shows that if you have a vision and if you have the right energy, I think everyone can now do it. So I thought, I want to become the face. I want people, again, brand building.
Yeah, and also
brand
like
building.
your creative outlet, right? I think because the like a lot of times you translate the creative vision of like brands or people that you work together or lookbooks or stuff like this. And I think there you're like truly like yourself, like truly like on your
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's a really fun creative outlet. And also I think I've been seeing the budgets. I do have to say, I think it's also a business decision. I have been seeing the budgets that people get for becoming a brand and becoming larger on social media. And with the amount of saturation that's in the market, I think it's the only real way to go to become more sustainable.
Yeah.
And I just love teaching. My mom's a teacher. My mom taught 12-year-olds for her entire career. So I think it's also a little bit in me to want to spread knowledge.
Yeah. And what do you do kind of like to escape that whole craziness and like your obsession of making everything better?
I'm very interested in stocks and investments. So that's been a big part of what I do in my free time. I think I do a lot of political activism in my free time that I don't really talk about too much because I also think politics should not be aligned with your brand per se. I share some of it, but not the greatest extent. I work out a lot. I like cats. I go to a lot of cat cafes. I go hiking a lot. So yeah, I think it's important to have this obsession, and I think it's important to have a counter obsession. So I think I'm quite an obsessive person, to be honest. So yeah, I think I check my stocks every day, and I read white papers, and I read about dividends and how companies are going to change their dividends, and I try and work out how much I need to earn a certain amount of X every quarter. So yeah, I like to try and maintain a certain level of productivity and a certain level of growth in myself as a person.
We talked a lot about the way in front of the lens, but also like behind the lens. What I also find quite interesting is kind of like the relationship at work, because on the one hand, you do have client briefs from BAT or from Maybelline or like those kind of bigger brands. Mm-hmm. But in the end, you still like have the space to fill in your own creativity and your own style. For everyone starting out, like how do you make sure that your voice kind of, or like your voice and your style gets kind of like considered inside of the client brief? How do you do that?
I think if you get to a certain point where you've been sharing what you've been doing online, I think clients will approach you for a certain look and feel. But I always deliver through an online gallery with the kind of the same look and feel with my own logo. I always customize the file names that I'm sharing to clients. I always make sure that when we do a client briefing, I'm very positive, very lenient, very compliant, but I'm also very stern with what's feasible. So I think in this industry, clients will always push you for more. And I think it's very strong and very important to tell your clients that less is more, and to always push for what you think that you can achieve in terms of quality. And a lot of clients will appreciate you pulling them back and saying, look, this is what I can deliver. You have to also be open. If you use a very strong coloring, or if you use hard flash and they want a soft flash shoot, I think it's honest and fair to say to that client, I think I'm not the right choice for this campaign. I think there's a level of trust that you need to build. And sometimes even if you say, hey, I use hard flash, client wants soft flash, they might switch to hard flash. So I think it's good to be honest with yourself and to communicate really well with a client. I think communication is key. And the biggest mistakes that I've had in my career is when I wasn't upfront, when I said, hey, I think I can do this, when I hadn't really done what they wanted before, and then I didn't really know how to put it down. Whereas if I'd said, hey, I don't really know how to do this specific thing, but I do know how to do this specific thing, and then show an example of something that I have already done, often a client will want to kind of move their shot list or their creativity slightly to match your aesthetic a little bit more. So just be honest. Be honest about what you can and can't do. And I see a lot of people saying, jump in the deep. If I haven't done it, maybe I can do it. You know, there's like that saying, but it's not always true if a client is paying. If a client is paying, it's also good to know your limits. So it's important.
Yeah, I think many people underestimate this, especially when you're starting. You just take on any job.
Yeah. You
And
can
then-
ruin your brand.
Yeah, and then most of the time you end up with way more work than like
Mm-hmm.
you wanted to. There in the podcast here, there was like Paul Snyder. He did like a really cool campaign with Don Diablo,
Very cool.
but then he ended up having to keyframe out from like a 1 hour set, and he's had like, I don't know, 380,000 keyframes to cut
Oh
them
my
out and to put them into
God.
space.
Yeah.
So, super cool project, but then he
Yeah.
said like the amount of working hours, like I
People have
really
no idea.
underestimated, like, but I just said yes and just jumped into it.
Yeah. And I think the worst thing is we'll fix it in post. Don't let your clients say that. If you can, try and fix it in the now. Try and not give yourself an insane amount of work just because you're trying to please a client. Like a simple saying, yes, I'll keyframe it out. We'll do it in post.
Yeah.
That added days of work to his life. So I think that's where self-protection comes in, self-preservation. And it's a tough battle. It's an endless struggle. And there's gonna be days where you say yes to something and it just turns out to be a huge amount of work for not the financial compensation that you wished it would be. That's always gonna be there. But you get better and better at this the more you say no.
What's the best business advice you ever received?
Ooh, it's funny. I'm actually looking for a business mentor. I feel like I haven't had enough mentorship in my business career. So I would love to have someone tell me some really great advice. I think the best advice I got was when I was at ADE. I shot all of ADE, and then I had a shoot for YSL. It was a couple years ago. And someone stood on the SSD that I just put all the work on. And it broke my SSD. I lost all of my ADE work pretty much. And it was just the day after, so I hadn't had time to back up. I was young. It was 2020, something like that, 2019. And my favorite client came up to me, gave me a hug and said, honey, don't worry. We're not saving wars. We're not saving lives here. It's just photos. And I think that's what sticks with me. Is something goes wrong, if a client is frustrated with something, if someone is reacting negatively to me for some reason,
It's just photos.
it's just photos. Like, if I fucked up, I fucked up. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that. If I messed up, I messed up. And I'm sorry. We'll try again. Don't worry about it. I think that's the biggest thing. That's what you said as well. Like, you can endlessly spiral. Is this good enough? Am I good enough? And in the end, it's just social media. It's just like people are just putting it for promotion, and there'll be a new campaign in 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. If we look a little bit into the future, like what's next for you? Like, what are the cool things that you're currently working on?
Sharing more videos online. So people watching, if you have questions for me, please ask me your questions about anything: money, life, love. Well, not love. It's private. Sharing more videos online, hoping to help people. I really want to move more towards beauty campaigns. I have a couple of really cool campaigns lined up, working with Bud. I'm going to be working with Maybelline again. And I'm also actually considering doing management for photographers, as in writing their emails, helping them with business, invoicing for them. So maybe potentially starting a small agency, not to become a photography agency, but to become a management agency to help people in the business side of photography, to have their back, to make sure that clients pay them what they're supposed to be paid. Because I think that's what I'm seeing a lot right now, is that large brands used to go to agencies, pay an agency fee, and pay agency photographers for massive campaigns. I'm getting these massive brands wanting to pay me pennies in comparison to what I know that they're paying these agencies. And they know that us photographers, videographers will do it because we're solo, we're freelance, and you have no one to back you up. You have no one to defend you. You have no one who knows this is what you should be asking. So that's something that I'm interested in is helping people that are a little bit younger, but who have an enormous following or are doing really creative things to make sure that they're getting what they deserve.
Nice. That they get protected.
Yeah, I just want to help people. I want to help people win. So
That's amazing. We have always 3 final questions that I ask every guest. But before that, thanks so much for this amazing talk. I think we learned so much about photography, videography. But I also think we got a very honest look inside of the industry, the state of it, but also what it really takes to make it. Because I do think if you're starting out and you don't have this true obsession yet, it's not bad. But I think if you never have it, I think there's other jobs and other industry there that you will be much more happy, because I think if you don't have this absolute willpower to learn and to create, choose another industry.
100% agree. Thank you kindly for having me. And that's the thing. The market is super saturated. Anyone can buy a camera, and there are so many obsessed people. I think I get 15, 20 DMs a week, and I'm a small creator. So you're competing against these people that are DMing everybody, that are hungry. And if you don't have that hunger, then maybe see if you can go into management, or, you can still work in the creative industry, but maybe production work or something else within this industry is more interesting.
Exactly. As said, we have always 3 final questions. The first question is, what's something that you're learning right now that you're not good at?
Ooh, I'm terrible at so many things. Languages. I'm learning Spanish right now. I'm on Duolingo streak 130. I'm also learning. I'm currently, I do videography, but I'm relatively new to videography. So I'm learning how to color grade. I'm learning how to key things. That's something I'm pretty terrible at still. So I really want to get good at transitions in videos. Yeah. But these very natural, clean, high-end transitions that just look seamless, I'm terrible at that. Terrible. Yeah. So I'm
sure that with your obsession, you will be able to manage it in a couple of months.
Yeah. So I'm shooting my first festival as a videographer in September. I'm going to be managing a team. I need to get this down by then. Okay. So watch me.
We will follow you.
Hopefully.
What would you name this chapter of your life?
The cocoon phase.
The cocoon phase. Very nice. And if you could send a SMS to all mobile phones in the world?
I would say, we are not free until we are all free.
We're not free until we're all free.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Rachel, thank you so much for coming to the 301 podcast. You can find Rachel's Instagram account, which is @Rachel Ecclestone.
Perfect.
And her website, which is rachelecclestone.com.
Perfect.
It's all linked in the description as well. Thank you so much for coming on. And for you, if you're still listening, thank you so much for listening again. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because still over 80% of the people that listen to the podcast right now are not subscribed. So go subscribe, and then we can bring on really cool guests and have fun conversations. Thank you so much for listening again. And this was it with the 301 podcast.